I'm Tim Kittro, and here to bring home the bacon are Big Ryan the Fat Guy.
What's up, YouTube? It's the NFL Picks Against the Spread for Week 7. I'm Big Ryan, joined by our guest, the Fat Guy. Fat Guy, we are 52-40, good for 56.5% against the spread for the first 6 weeks of the year. On to the Thursday game. New Orleans Saints at the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are 1-point favorites at home. 67% of early bettors are on the Arizona Cardinals. Fat Guy, who you got?
It's hard to back the Cardinals. Like I don't think I've done it too often this season, but it's pretty piss poor, to put it mildly. I think if you look at NEA, I think they're the worst team or next to on offense. It's just hard to believe, right? And they always seem to trade for flashy pieces, and I hate if someone goes, "Oh, DeAndre Hopkins isn't there." Yeah, he's going to turn them from like one of the worst performing offenses to just one of the best. He's a receiver. He's not a quarterback. It's just not going to happen. That being said, I'm going to take him this week, but I'm completely indifferent. I'm not really sure where this market's going to go, and I'm kind of interested, to be honest. Like, New Orleans is a team that has been competing. They got kind of unlucky, it felt like, not to get that cover at the end, but then again, we watch one iteration of game, and there's millions. I just want to see how this market plays out. Arizona for purely a contest choice and perhaps a rebound performance.
Yeah, Arizona's 3-3 against the spread on closing lines. New Orleans 2-4 so far in this early season. Fat Guy, on to the next game. Indianapolis Colts at the Tennessee Titans. Titans -2 at home. 82% of early bettors are on the Titans. Fat Guy, who you got?
It depends where the juice is, to be fair. In the contest, I think it's Titans 2 is the number to play. I think this closes as Titans -2.5. I could see a 3. So that's why, like, you want to err on the side of caution. Maybe like let's use Pinnacle lines, like a -3 plus 102, which is like 2.78 probably. So somewhere in that vicinity. So there's probably closing line value. This is the issue with like this week onward is it tends to get kind of sharper, like a lot of these numbers. And I think Titans -2.5 is probably where it's going to be. So I guess I'll take a hook on a push at the frequency of 2. Not much of an edge, definitely not a bet for me, but in the contest, Tennessee Titans.
On to the next game, which is going to be the New York Giants traveling to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars, who are 3-point favorites at home. 41% of early bettors are on the Jaguars. Fat Guy, who you got?
I'm going to take the Jacksonville Jags. I'm kind of curious. This is a pros versus Joes game potentially here, because a lot of the Joes are going to look at the Giants as 5-1, and the Giants have been parlay beaters and teaser beaters. Beating the Ravens by 4, so that would have crushed most parlays, most teasers, some survivors, and beating Green Bay at 7.5. That would have beaten all teasers, all parlays, and potentially some survivors. So the Giants are definitely on the square radar, and I think that there's a chance that this could move to 2.5, but I'd rather take the Jacksonville Jags here and then pile on more money at 2.5. I think this is going to be a bet for me at 2.5. In the contest, it's going to be Jags -3, and I really do think this is going to be pro money versus Joe money in this game, with the pros backing the Jags and the Joes backing the Giants. So this will be an interesting market to watch. I kind of really hope it gets down to 2.5, and not before close, because I think it'll jump back up to 3, because maybe 3 is the equilibrium line for this game. But I do think it's going to get down. And if it moves for some ridiculous reason, I will consider Jacksonville money line. So in the contest, Jags -3.
Giants-Jags is 5-star entertainment. And
yes.
Giants are 5-1 against the spread. Arguably coach of the year so far, Brian Dabble. On to the next game. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Carolina Panthers. Panthers +10.5 at home. 54% of early bettors are on the Panthers. Panthers are 1-5 against the spread on closing lines at Pinnacle. Fat Guy, who you got?
We're gonna try this again here. They've hurt me professionally, I would say, of all teams this year. Tampa Bay just being abysmal on offense, not something that I would have foreseen. They make a lot of storylines about Tom Brady's time off, but I mean, sometimes these probabilities just find a way to play themselves out. But they have taken a lot of, I hate procedure penalties. Big Ryan knows that. And I feel like anecdotally, Tampa Bay has taken a lot of procedure penalties. But I mean, they're playing the Carolina Panthers who are in complete disarray, firing their coach just the week before last, or I guess last week before the game. Either or, 10.5 points. I do think this could close at 12.5 or 13. But here, that's on the very, very high end. I don't think you're going to see a lot of Panthers money. I think it could only move in one direction, but more than likely it'll just stay at 10.5. I hate laying numbers like that. I absolutely do. But this is a spot, contest-wise, that I kind of feel obliged to do it. So ugly number at 10.5, but I do think that they're more likely to get closing line value at Bucks minus 10.5 than you are with Carolina.
On to the next game, Fat Guy, which is going to be the Green Bay Packers at the Washington Commanders. Commanders plus 4.5 at home. 32% of early bettors are on Washington. Fat Guy, who you got?
It's just hard to say this again. Laying 4.5 with the Green Bay Packers. I do think this is going to close higher, though. Obviously, everyone knows that Carson Wentz is out, and then a lot of people, they think good riddance. That's going to be better for, I believe, Taylor Heineke is going to start. That being said, I do think this is going to close at 6.5, and I do think that's going to be considerable value if you do bet on the Green Bay Packers. The issue is, though, maybe because, again, teasers, parlays, survivors have kind of been dashed by Green Bay the last 2 weeks. So, Joe Money, are they really going to run to the Washington wicket? That's the one issue I have about this moving. I still think this should be Packers minus 6.5, and I'm still going to take it, and I'm probably going to bet in real life. And I could get mistaken here. Like, maybe there is some sort of Heineke win probability added over Carson Wentz, but I do think that's unlikely. I think it's more likely to go to Green Bay minus 6.5. So for that, I'm going to take Green Bay minus 4.5.
Fat Guy, next up, the Detroit Lions travel to Dallas to take on the Cowboys, who are 7-point favorites at home. 36% of early bettors are on the Cowboys. Fat Guy, who you got?
Well, this is a case of the early bird gets the worm, to use a cliche. This 7 is probably solid. I'm going to take the Detroit Lions. I'm not laying 7 points with the Dallas Cowboys in this spot, but I think that, I know friends of mine and perhaps even me have got Detroit plus 7.5. It was available for a short period of time. That's when you want to be betting. Like, some of these lines, there's still movement, but mobility to it. But it's not that hard to get reasonably good. And then you're going to go, oh, what does it matter? Moving from 7.5.
Matters a lot.
It really does. And people don't seem to realize that. We talked about a friend of mine, he's got 3 middles coming up, right? And someone in our Discord, shout out to Finnish member of our Discord, and long-time subscriber. He had a middling play last week with Miami and Minnesota. Minnesota won by 3. He would have won both bets, and it was like a 30% ROI play, because the chances of Minnesota winning by 3 last weekend, even though they didn't, was 9%. So these things that's these are massive edges. You got 30%. Again, that's 30%. You have to gamble to get that realization. It's almost like the first leg of the middling parlay is guessing where the line's going to move, and then the second leg is getting a good number and hoping that middle number, or at least doing the math on it, which you can do using no vig lines and comparing them to figure out what the win by, whatever your middle is. Say your middle is 4 and 5, you have plus 5.5 and minus 3.5. What are the chances of landing on those numbers? Anyway, I'm going long on this one. Get early. Check out early lines. And even if you don't have the money, if you're new to this, you don't want to put it into it, check out early lines on Heritage, Pinnacle on Sunday night. No one has a gun to your head that you have to gamble. Just make a simple spreadsheet. Get a pen and paper if you have it. Write down what you think is going to happen, and then compare results. And if you think that the 3 or so games where that extra number matters, if you don't like, that type of prognostication, let's call it, then try to get money lines. You know what I mean? It's harder to get a money line down, I will be fair, but like money line, you can realize it instantly. If you have a good price early on, and you take it and you just try and get good, try and, wield that whittle that stick down, get it sharp, and try and get good at predicting line movements. That's what I gotta say. And this is one of them. This 7.5, a lot of places when it opened, and immediately bet down by the early bettors, which are usually the sharper bettors. So we're going long on this one. Lions +7.
Get a pen and paper if you have it. You heard it from the fat guy here first. Atlanta Falcons at the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals -6.5. 34% of early bettors are on the Bengals. Fat guy, who you got?
Well, we're going to be taking the spoiler Falcons. You spoke of coach of the year. I think Arthur Smith has a little bit of
6-0 against the spread. Doesn't get
6-0 against the spread. Yes, and let's be fair here. You could reasonably frame that the Falcons have the worst roster in the NFL. You could reasonably, at least bottom five. I don't know. Bottom five. There's no way out of that. There's no way out of that. And they compete every single weekend. They have a really poor roster. And I'm not into that kind of stuff, but like dissecting rosters, because I found that modeling you don't get the utility out of the hours you put into doing it unless you're highly, highly skilled in the maths. That being said, and then why would you do this? Why would you model sports for a lot less money if you were highly skilled? See, doesn't even make sense. Economies of scale. That being said, 6.5 here. I actually think there's going to be closing line value. I think this will close at 6 or even 5.5, and that number 6 is going to be key. I think the Falcons were 7. I can't quote that because I don't have. It would just be anecdotal in my head when they opened at 7, and that would have been a really nice number to get a push frequency at 7. I still think there's going to be closing line value. I still think that the Cincinnati Bungles, they're going to close at -6, -5.5, and that'll be pretty good. Like 6 is a key number nowadays. It's just behind 7 or even in line if you use a frequentist approach. So that being said, we're going to take Atlanta. We're going to go for the nice 7-0 ATS. Let's go Falcons.
There are places that have 6.5 with really bad juice against the Falcons, which kind of pushes it to a bad 7, I guess you could say. But fat guy, on to the next game, which is going to be the Cleveland Browns taking on the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. Ravens -6 at home. 70% of early bettors are on the Ravens. Fat guy, who you got?
Wow, we're going to follow them. We're going to go with the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to lay the 6 points. And I don't think it's unreasonable for this to close at 6.5. I'd like the Browns to turn out a nice performance here. Like this is one I'm going to watch just as a fan here. The Ravens didn't exactly have the weekend that they should. And some people are probably surprised by this 6 number. But I'm not sure what the sentiment is going to be on the Cleveland Browns. It's probably pretty low at this moment. They have played worse on defense than they have on offense, which is really not a good sign, all things considered, when you're playing a placeholder quarterback for incumbent Deshaun Watson. But again, I don't like mentioning rosters too much. I like trying to predict which way the line is going to move, and if there is value now, if there's going to be value in the future, or if value was lost. Those are all the ideas. And that being said, I think it's more likely to go Ravens -6.5. For me, it's hard to go to 7 just because you don't want to, like, you'd rather have like worse juice and to avoid a 7. Like having 6.5 is good. Good for the handle, because a push really sucks for the book. You got to refund all tickets. So I just have a hard time believing it'll go to 7. I mean, I could be wrong on some of these things, and I often am, right? But I do think this is more likely to go to 6.5. And this is a contest pick, though. Hard for me to put harder in dollars on it. We're going to go Baltimore Ravens -6.
Fat guy, next up, the New York Jets travel to Denver to take on the Broncos. They're 3.5-point favorites at home. 7% of early bettors are on the Broncos, who just came off a 3-point loss in overtime to the Chargers just before recording. Your thoughts on this Jets Broncos 3.5?
Is this a mispricing? Like what? I'm not really sure. Like, are they just using like, I don't know. I think this is going to move. I think it's going to move to a solid Denver -3. I think the hook is there. I think you should take it. Um, that's it. The closing line value on the Jets, and partially because I think the Jets were a sharp darling. The Broncos are really falling out of favor, and the Jets are probably a Joe darling. I mean, playing spoiler multiple games and just in dominating fashion, being the Green Bay Packers makes the Joes more reflective. Like I could see people having positive Jets sentiment, like the Joes. I really could, and especially in a game like Denver, I think has played the most on prime time, if I'm not mistaken, and they couldn't look worse. Like people are, it's almost worse to be boring. Do you know what I mean? Like Denver's defense has played very well, and again, I hate highlighting performance, but I'm trying to get in the mind of the Joe. But the games have been just grating, just grating. The Thursday night against Indy was so hard to watch. This game against the Chargers was hard to watch. Their defense played great. They are abysmal on offense to watch. I don't know if it's miscommunications. I don't know what it is. One of the names of the week has a hypothesis as to why the Broncos are so bad on offense, or at least hard to watch at a minimum. That being said, I think there's going to be closing line value on the Jets. I think it closes at Denver -3.5, and I think you're going to miss out if you don't bet on Jets +3.5.
I'm going to be very bold here and say that this could possibly move to a pick'em. Like
I'm okay with that.
3.5 to me it's a misprice. And I will say that Pinnacle does not have a line out for this game yet. So we're using lines from other books before this has come out. I think 3.5 would be a dream line for this game. And I think this line moves because the Jets have just been a better team. And you don't really want to say like, oh, this team's been better, but like almost every statistics points to the Jets being
in
better.
Every field, in every single facet, except I don't know. I haven't looked at their kicking compared McManus and Zerline and punting. Like that would be like that's the only place that potentially the Broncos could have fared better. The Jets are just a better. I don't want to say they're a better team because I don't think they have a better roster, but they are playing much better. They are. They just are, and this number is going to move.
Fat Guy. Next up, we have the Houston Texans traveling to Vegas to take on the Raiders, who are 6.5-point favorites at home. 57% of early bettors are on the Raiders. Fat Guy, who you got?
This is weird to lay this number, but we're going to lay it with Las Vegas. Seems very hokey. That being said, laying 6.5 in this game, I don't feel comfortable doing it, but I could see this maybe close at 7. I'm or maybe 6 too. This is purely a contest pick. I really don't have any feelings. It's like this line's like a good poker player. They make you indifferent to your choices, and I would definitely say that this is one of them. So keep this one short and sweet. Vegas -6.5.
This line almost seems like a trap game to take Houston, but
a little bit. But I hate saying trap. I hate because it's like I know the result of the game. Exactly. I don't.
Next up, we have the Seattle Seahawks traveling to LA to take on the Chargers, who are 7-point favorites at home. 87% of early bettors are on the Seahawks. Do you think, Fat Guy, I'm going to borrow one of your thoughts, especially that you pushed on last year. The Chargers just played, so these betting percentages could be based off of the potential of a Justin Herbert type injury before, because these percentages, this is not what it's going to stay at before kickoff. Do you think that 87% of people who have bet the Seahawks at this price of 7 or so, do you think it's because of that injury related, or do you think it's something different?
I think it's less so injury related. I think it's like more so to be like a free roll. I think Seattle, this is nothing. I don't like talking about performance too much, but they actually seem competent at quarterback. Which is like a dream for a really bad team. It just is. And so I think that if there's an injury, this goes down to LA -1 or Seattle -1 if there was an injury to Herbert. If this stays the same, it's still probably going to go down to LAC -6.5, -6. Like you're almost getting like an injury free roll. Like I would be very surprised if this went to Seattle +7.5. I really, really would. I feel like there's more downward pressure than upward. And I think you're more
I
likely
agree.
to take those types of gambles, right? Like I just think the mobility of the line is more, and like even then, if it went to 7.5, like that's the worst result that could happen. Whereas like, it can really torpedo down, and the chances of a Herbert injury or, um, you know, potentially making his ailments worse is low probability, but I mean, it's free money basically if it happens, right? So that might factor into it a tad, but I would say more so that there's just downward pressure on the line at 7 than there is upward. And, I'd be willing to take that gamble at 7 as well. And that's going to be the pick, the Seattle Seahawks +7.
Just looking at BetStamp, and there's some shitty books out there that you can get Seattle +7.5 with terrible juice, like minus
Yes,
130
so what?
juice.
Minus 130. So you get
yeah.
Seattle +6. Great.
Yeah. On to the next game. Kansas City at San Fran. San Fran +3 at home. 20% of early bettors are on the 49ers. Fat guy, who you got?
Oh, this is a tough one, eh? Like, we'll go San Fran, but this is really an indifference pick. Like the movement on this, this one's like a market I'm maybe the most interested in. Like do the Chiefs, like the recency bias is going to favor the Chiefs, I would think, because losing in a pretty tight affair with, for sure, considered by the public the best team in the league, the Buffalo Bills, is a lot more palpable than ending your survivor losing to what was considered a big underdog Atlanta Falcons, less than a touchdown. So maybe not big, but okay. Still an underdog. Just a lot different circumstances, right? So I'm going to say that I'm going to take San Fran, but I'm not confident that like this is going to move to like Kansas City -2.5. This is just more of a wait and see market for me. So I'm going to take San Fran. I'm going to take the 3 points at home. I think that there is potentially value in that, but not worth risking $1 for me, especially at any sort of juice prices. I mean, I would even consider a San Fran money line as well. But more or less, this is going to be a good game for the fans. It just is. San Fran can be a very entertaining team to watch when all the cogs are turning. So that being said, this is a market to watch out for. Does it end up Chiefs -3.5? Does it end up with Niners +2.5? Like, where does that half point go, or does it stay the same? So one to look out for. We'll take San Fran, purely a contest pick.
I think top of the mountain is Kansas City -3, so I do like San Fran at this price. Probably a money line play for me. Fat guy. On to the next game. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins -7.5 point favorites at home. 64% of early bettors are on the Dolphins. Fat guy, I'm guessing that Tua is back, because that's a lot of points for the Dolphins to have at home, even versus the lowly Steelers.
But I don't get this one. This one feels like the Jets too, doesn't it? I mean, 7.5. Because remember last year when, like, if Tua switched to like Tua's value wasn't there in the minds of lines makers and bettors. Like, why is this such a massive upgrade? I'm kind of befuddled. I think this closes at, I'm going to even say Miami -6. I'm open to eating my words, but I do think that this is a weird thing too to say. If I was winning the game, I'd probably want Kenny Pickett if I'm a Steelers fan. But for a cover, I want a Mitchell Trubisky. I got to be honest here. So just think of the dichotomy.
No,
it does.
I
It does.
I get what you're saying.
It's hard for, like, Trubisky's so not risky, which is perfect for a game that should be within reason if he's playing, right? It's not like the Steelers can't play some I'm talking about defense. Holy smokes. I think this line is going to close Miami -6. I think there's value on the Steelers to bet in real life. I think there's value on the Steelers in the contest. I'm taking the Steelers with some hope that Mitchell Trubisky plays quarterback.
And on to the Monday night game, which is going to be between the Chicago Bears and the New England Patriots. Patriots 7.5 point favorites in Foxborough. 74% of early bettors are on the Pats at home. Fat guy, who you got?
We're going to take the Chicago Bears. Do you have the total in front of you there, Big Rye?
I can pull it up. Just give me
Closed one of my windows. Yeah, we're going to be taking the Bears here. Yeah. I thought in my head, I was like, because I couldn't remember. I'm like, my computer went 38.5. It's kind of hard to cover. Like, a 38.5 point spread by 8 or more. You know what I mean? Or 38.5 total, 39.5 rather. Just is. And like, oh, the total is not necessarily 30. Yeah, it could be 50, could be 70, but it's most likely the median is most likely, 39, 40. I kind of like the Bears in this spot. I think that this is just too many points, and there could be some recency bias. I could see this shifting down to, I don't know like what the sentiment is of the public on the Patriots laying 7.5 points. I'm not really sure, but I think this could end up 7. I think that is possible. And even then, this is one of those like pressure, upward, downward pressure things I mentioned earlier. If it goes to 8.5, I'm not like upset about it if I was betting, but if it went to 7 or, God forbid 6.5, and I had, and I missed out on the Bears 7.5, that would bother me, losing that gap in expected value versus the closing line. So in the contest, it'll be 7.5. It'll be a wait and see in real life. Bears plus 7.5.
A surprising little stat that I have here is Patrick. What am I even? I
Holy,
even
that
right
couldn't
now.
be butchered. Where's your teleprompter?
Yeah, I'm turning into a mass hole over here. But the Pats are 5th in point differential this year, which is kind of interesting. Fat guy, on to the lightning round. New Orleans at Arizona.
The lowly Cards.
Indy at Tennessee.
Tennessee Titans.
Giants at Jacksonville.
Jag Rags.
Tampa Bay at Carolina.
The Bucks.
Green Bay at Washington.
The Packers.
Detroit at Dallas.
The Lions.
Atlanta at Cincy.
The Falcons.
Cleveland at Baltimore.
The Ravens.
Jets at Broncos.
Going aerial for the 3rd time in a row, the Jets.
Houston at Las Vegas.
The Raiders.
Seattle at LAC.
The Seahawks.
Kansas City, San Fran.
San Francisco.
Pittsburgh at Miami.
The Steelers.
And Chicago at New England.
The Chicago Bears and the points. I think I went all birds there.
Congratulations to the Week 6 picks against a spread winner, which is Wook Dog. And he was the first person to win this year based off his closest to the pin.
I love that.
He chose 47, and Untouchable Jay, who almost won back-to-back weeks. The twin surprise. I don't know. I don't have a clever name for it, but
Clearly.
He also went 11-3. But his over/under was 1 point higher than Wook Dog, and the under hit on the Monday night game between Denver and the Chargers. So congratulations to Wook Dog, 11-3, very impressive. Just
long time subscriber.
Spread. And here is the leaderboard for Week 6. You can see Wook Dog and Untouchable Jay tied at 11-3. And then we have a clear gap there. No one with 10 wins, but we do have Detroit's Kneecaps at 9, Jameson at 9, CEO Eric Hayden continues.
I got to go to my daughter's basketball game.
Starfire Mike J, Worm 77, P Cut, and the ever infamous Mickey at 9 wins. And the overall leaderboard, CEO Eric Hayden, 2 wins above the rest, 56, 36-2. Good.
Take it out of my paycheck.
Good for 61% on the year. Untouchable Jay, not too far behind, 2 games behind at 58.7. Fat Guy, you and I, we are still in the top 5 here. 52 wins in 94 games, not too shabby for 56.5%. On to the JS715. Name of the week, honorable mentions.
My wife thought I was too mean. I said that we had the TV on and she looked over and it was Nathaniel Hackett. I said, that might be one of the worst coaches I've ever seen. Maybe it's too early to tell, but it has been abysmal for an offensive guy. Hackett's play call sheet is a coloring book. I'm open to that theory. Halloween 4, The Return of Big Rye. Much like Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. It doesn't even have Michael Myers in it. I could totally see that. The only person with a worse week than me last week was the photographer for the
Chiefs.
Oh, the Chiefs, right. Vida Labouche Vidal Sassoon. Gore Vidal and Vidal Sassoon are the same person, right? LEG. Who brought down the Cotton Curtain? RIP JS715. Okay. Guess you're on the JS716 train. Watch the Broncos in primetime or saw off your own foot. That was the big ending to Saw, right? Untouchable Jay's Valet. Oh, I like that one. Virgil was usually my valet.
This is the JS715 Name of the Week. Whoa, kaboom!
I wear my winter shirt from a couple years ago to sleep. They're not bad shirts. They really aren't.
High quality stuff, and they're rare now because they don't get made anymore. So congrats to those who won a shirt. Cherish
Email
that
me.
thing.
We can figure it out.
Make your picks against the spread for Week 7 at Big Rye and thefatguy.com. Thank you to our channel members here: Blurry Blends, Colton, Dan, J-Mac, Jamie, Josh, Mickey, Pimus, Ronald, the figure skater, Untouchable J, and Zelalem. I'm not going to even try the last name this time because I am hopeless.
You're not into fantasy?
I love fantasy, but usually it starts with football. Fat Guy, that's it. NFL picks against the spread for Week 7. Like, the margins get smaller and smaller, but there's some opening lines here that just don't make sense.
Jets and Steelers. If there's not a movement, something's up. Something stinks.
That's it, guys. That's it for us. Good luck with your picks against the spread for Week 7. Like, comment, subscribe, join the membership, all that lovely stuff. Good luck for your picks in Week 7.